Okay, let's talk about containment systems for a second. I'm using this term containment systems intentionally. You're going to have the kind that's either wired or wireless that you would go to the pet store and purchase, or you would order online and you bring home. And you're going to bury the line, or you're going to set it up yourself. Or you're going to have the same thing with a company that is local. They're going to come to you and install it, set it up, bury it, whatever the situation is. If you have wired or wireless, it's just going to depend. And they will. I don't know if there's an and. There's one company, to my knowledge, that will work with you and your dog on boundary training, how to appropriately. They do get this part right. They do know how they do train you and your dog on how to establish a boundary. The part of boundary training that is going to be more like in my neck of the woods as a predominantly rewards-based trainer is going to be positively reinforcing when the dog comes away from the boundary, when the dog stops short of the marker flags or the boundary line. So I'm going to forego the positive punishment that's applied by the collar and the shock that's administered by the collar, or the stimulation, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to forego that part. Okay, so they do come out and they show you how to train your dog in regards to boundary work. And then they will not, if I haven't mentioned yet, it's Invisible Fence. Invisible Fence is the one company that I know of, because I don't dabble in this area, that will come out and help you with this. And they also will not, have not, to my knowledge, and should not certainly take your dog across the boundary just to shock them, or encourage you to take your dog across the boundary line just to shock them, to show them what that does, because there's no better way to poison your entire yard space than doing that. Your dog will never leave the back door, like they'll never leave the deck, they'll never leave the stoop, or they'll never leave the center of the yard and venture out further than that. And they're terrified. And then the yard has become something that they go out of their way to avoid, and all that money that you just spent has gone down the drain there. So that has not been my experience when I've had mutual clients with them. Okay, but they don't have my shining stamp of like, they don't. I mean, who am I? Whatever. Like I'm a guy. I'm just a guy. I'm just a certified professional dog trainer. Okay, that listens to people that are smarter than me. Okay, and there's a lot. But so people of my ilk, the people that I learn from, are not going to be a fan either. So I don't sign off. I'm not a co-signer for the positive punishment aspect of these containment systems. But that is the one company that will come out and do that aspect properly. They do kind of operate on an honor system where they have a number of lessons that they want you to do with them, but they can't force you to do them. It's not compulsory. So like, you're strongly encouraged to do it, but you can flake out of it. It's your property. Like, you can just not allow them on your property. Like, okay, so you can forego those lessons. But those lessons are available to you, I'm sure, within a certain time frame of the installation. Okay, moving on, please and thank you. There are other companies that will come out, and to my knowledge, once again, Invisible Fence is the only one, or the last time I checked. So do your research, check with the company that you're speaking to. Last time I checked, Invisible Fence was the only one that doesn't shock your dog coming back in bounds. So the dog breaks the boundary, they get shocked when that happens. They get shocked for a certain amount of time once that's breached. when they come back and cross the boundary line to come back in the yard, then it's not administering positive punishment. The other companies, the last time I checked, again, I mean, like, several years have passed since I've been doing things independently, so I'm not sure. Things might have changed. So ask. The onus is on you to ask if you're pursuing this option. So Invisible Fence is the only company that does not shock the dog when they're coming back in. You don't want your dog to be shocked when they're coming back into the inbounds. That's the behavior you want. You don't want to be punishing that behavior. So that's very similar to when somebody has called their dog to them and the dog was evasive, or give them the runaround or whatever, and the guardian spanks them, hits them or whatever, yells at them. They've successfully done that behavior that you want them to do. That's a desired behavior, no matter what happened, no matter what came before it. So you don't want a system that does that. Okay, I personally don't want a system like this at all. It's just not. It's not for me. But the people that I work with that have them, they usually end up in a situation where they're lulled into this like false sense of security, where they don't even make the dog wear the collar anymore. They don't even charge the battery for the collar anymore, and that is playing with fire as far as I'm concerned. Just relying on the learned experience of that positive punishment to deter the dog from breaking the boundary when they see something that they want to get to bad enough. So can't condone that. When I have a pet sitting client that says, hey, like, my dog, you can just let him out, and if the situation is that the dog is just boundary trained and there's no physical fence and there's no containment system, and they want me to let them out, or if it's that there is a wired or wireless containment system and they just want me to let them out, I let them know right then and there, like, nope, no thank you, I'm not going to be doing that. I will have this dog on a long line, or you can use somebody else, and that's totally fine. But I'm not leaving that to chance. So personally, if it's my yard and I don't have a physical fence, then I'm going to be using a long line and a harness, and I'm going to back up the harness to my collar, like I've talked about over and over again. And if, depending on what the yard looks like, it might be a 20-foot long line, might be a 30-foot long line, 50-foot long line, 100-foot long line, a 100-foot long line with a 50-foot long line, or 2 100-foot long lines, 3 100-foot long line, whatever. Like, the convenient, that's why you have a fence. That's why you have a fence of any kind. Is one thing is its convenience. So security. Security is one. Security takes a hit when you have a containment system. Security is dubious. Convenience. The convenience, like, people, like, they get one of these systems and they go inside and they don't monitor their dog's outside time. They don't supervise the dog's outside time. That is really, like, irresponsible. And you're putting a deadly amount of trust into your dog. And not only can your dog get out of that boundary, but things can come in to your yard. Okay. If you have a dog that you're worried, if you have a dog that you're not 100% sure wouldn't bite, which is no dog, but like, if you're worried about a dog, like, if a stranger was to try to pet them, then that dog doesn't need to be on a containment system. Okay, so if you would be worried if that someone tried to approach that dog, if they were loose, then that dog has no business being on a containment system. But HOAs, they suck. They suck for many reasons, but one of the reasons, like, my clients that I have here, their HOA prevents them from having a fence of any kind unless it is wrought iron. So, like, HOAs are down with invisible fence, or not invisible fence particularly, containment systems, a lot of the time, whereas that's a bigger headache as far as I'm concerned. Worried about eyesores versus security and safety. So, you know, if you have multiple dogs, then it's going to be harder to have your long lines going everywhere. But also, like, again, I'm not going to sign off on having multiple dogs on a containment system, because there's just so many moving pieces. There's so many dogs. There's independent thought, like, of each sentient being that you're working with, that you're dealing with. A lot can go wrong. So, the shock of the collar can change a dog's neuroreceptors in their brain. I'm not a big fan of that. And it's not magic. Your dog, you can build up a punishment callus, or an aversive callus where your dog, or even, like, you know, over time they get conditioned to that pain. But also, like, if the thing is worth getting to, you know, it doesn't matter how much positive punishment is applied, or what intensity of positive punishment is applied. If that thing is worth getting to them, then they'll blow through that. So I know they have, like, stubborn dog collars and all that stuff, which we've already talked about how I feel about that word and that concept.